Inside Out 2 is finally here, and boy, does it have a lot resting on its shoulders. I feel like over the last couple of years, a lot of people are questioning whether or not people are still interested in Pixar movies. Do they still have it? And at the end of the day, does Pixar still have the magic? Is the magic back? So with Inside Out 2, is the magic back? Yeah, but again, it's kind of funny because I don't know if I'm the right person to even answer that question, because I just realized the last Pixar movie I saw was Finding Dory back in 2017. I was actually kind of shocked when I found that out. I was looking at the list of all the Pixar movies. I'm like, what? The last movie I saw was Finding Dory? Which, as a side note, Finding Dory may be the most underrated Pixar movie ever. That movie is phenomenal and no one talks about it, which is a damn crime. But yeah, I didn't see Toy Story 4, I didn't see Incredibles 2, I didn't see Soul, I didn't see Luca, I didn't see Lightyear, I didn't see Elemental. So so for me, is the magic back? For me, the magic never left because the last movie I saw was Finding Dory. So to me, the magic never left. But even though that's where I stand, even if you have seen all those movies and you are the one that are like, oh, the magic has gone away, I would say that Inside Out 2 does bring some of that magic back. It does feel like a Pixar movie from the mid to late 2000s, and that's a great thing. But I will say out the gate, this movie is not as good as Inside Out. In fact, it's not even close. I would say Inside Out to me is S tier Pixar. And I mean, don't worry, there's a lot of S tier Pixar movies, so I'm not saying that it's the best. I'm just saying that there's probably 7 or 8 S tier Pixar movies, and Inside Out is one of them, at least for me. And Inside Out 2 is, I would give it a solid B. If I was ranking this, I would give Inside Out 2 a B, which is not a bad thing. I still recommend this movie. You're still gonna have a good time. It's worth the price of admission. Take your family. You're gonna have a blast with this one. I just don't think it hits the emotional highs of the first movie and some of other Pixar movies. So my two biggest criticisms of this movie is one, I love Inside Out. I think it's arguably, actually, I don't know if it's even an argument. I think it's the most emotional Pixar movie ever made, and I don't even know how you can argue that it's not. I mean, emotion is part of the movie. I mean, the sadness plays a big part of the movie, and that movie is just, an emotional roller coaster. I feel like every 15 minutes of that movie, you are tearing up, and I think it's a special, special movie. And unfortunately, Inside Out 2 does not have that at all. You are not going to be tearing up every 15 minutes. It does not have a big emotional core. So in that regard, I was a little bummed out. I was hoping that they could still carry that emotional weight into this movie. And unfortunately they don't. In the first movie, sadness plays a huge part of that movie, right? Sadness and joy. And this movie, it's kind of that emotion, those emotions are kind of replaced with anxiety. Anxiety takes the pilot seat of this movie, and which is cool. That's an awesome concept, especially for a 13-year-old, protagonist. It makes a whole lot of sense. However, what you lose out on by having anxiety, run the show is that you lose some of that emotional core that was from the first movie. So I find that to be a bummer. I didn't get emotional once in this movie. It didn't even come close. I think it tries towards the end, but it didn't really resonate with me in the same way that the first movie did. So that was kind of a bummer. Still a good time, but this movie is not as emotionally heavy as the first movie. And the second thing is that this movie's plot structure, or just plot, is very familiar. And, to be fair, even if Pixar movies' plots are similar to other plot lines, I mean, it's all movies, right? Everybody steals from everybody. But what makes, the Pixar crew geniuses is that they take familiar stories and they weave it into something special and different and unique, and they think out of the box, and they meld that, they put it into a pot, and it's a big old Pixar stew of just, magic. This movie didn't do a good enough job with its interesting concept to distract me from the fact that this plot is very familiar. And when I say it's familiar, it's because this movie's plot, essentially, when it's boiled down, is that Riley, who is now 13, she has a great life. She has she has fun friends. She's very good at hockey. One day she goes to a hockey camp and she sees the cool girls, and now she's split between, do I hang out with my friends that I've had forever, or do I go be with the cool kids? And so she goes with the cool kids, tries to be with the cool kids, kids and leaves her friends behind, starts making stupid decisions, and then in the end realizes like, hey, I don't need to be with the cool kids. I don't need to be cool. I don't need to be perfect. Maybe I can just go back to who I was and just be who I am. As fascinating as that plot is, it's been done, you know, hundreds of times. You know, as someone who's grown up in the 90s and the 2000s, that was the plot for like almost every teen comedy that I saw. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. So as I was watching this, I was like, oh, they're going with the character trying to be with the cool kids, leaving her friends behind plot. So I thought that was kind of a bummer. And again, all Pixar movies are the same stories from different, you know, other stories. But what I think other Pixar movies do better is that their concept overtakes the familiar plot line, so where not really thinking about it. But in this movie, it was kind of the opposite. I was thinking about it a lot. I'm like, oh, this is the scene where this is going to happen. This is the scene where this is going to happen. And so for me, I wasn't emotionally invested in the story as I was with other like S-tier Pixar movies. But yeah, I know it sounds like I'm bummed on this movie, but again, you know, I think this is a solid movie. I think it's a lot of fun. This movie is really funny. They introduce new characters, and I think anxiety steals the show. I think that character is a lot of fun, and the character design is goofy. There's a lot of good bits in this movie that I wasn't expecting. There's one that has to do with video games that I thought was phenomenal. I mean, I'm wearing a video game shirt, so I'm a big gamer, so just seeing a video game, you know, character in the movie was unexpected and a lot of fun. There's a character that's a fanny pack that every time he was on screen, I was laughing my ass off. So there's a lot of good, fun moments. I think the journey is, even though it's kind of familiar to the first one, there's still a good momentum to the movie. You're never really bored. There's still a good pace. Yeah, so this movie is just a lot of fun. And it does what a good sequel does, right? Which is that it takes the concepts and the ideas of the movie that came before, and it builds on top of that foundation. And I think this movie does a really good job. You know, the first movie is about emotions, and this movie is more about belief systems and, you know, carving a personality. I thought that building on top of the foundation of the first movie was really interesting, because I wasn't expecting that. I was like, okay, some new emotions come in and that's it. But the movie goes a little deeper than that, and I really appreciated it. And I thought it was a really nice touch. I guess another bummer thing is that, you know, one of the things about Pixar movies that a lot of people don't talk about or discuss about Pixar film, especially really good Pixar films, is how they stage action scenes. They are, you know, perfectionists when it comes to action scenes. So I know that sounds silly. They're like, you know, people are like, what are you talking about? It's a Pixar movie. They're good at emotions and stuff. And it's like, no, they're also very good at action. And what they do good in action scenes is that it's not just a character stuck in a situation and how they're going to get out of it, which they're very good at that too. In that moment, you know, characters make decisions that have consequences, and then they have to deal with that consequences, and then they have to deal with this, and they have to deal with this, until eventually they handle the situation and they get out of it. It's like when they do action, they escalate and escalate and escalate and escalate until, you know, it's solved. And a lot of their movies, they do that, where it's like, it's not just, oh, they're in danger, how are they going to get out? It's like, oh, they're in danger, but then this character does that, which leads to this, which leads to that. And it just, you know, again, it builds and builds and builds and builds and makes for a thrilling action scene. And in this movie, they don't quite do that. And instead, the action scenes are just the basic, like, oh, they're in a situation, how are they going to get out of it? And then they quickly get out of it. As opposed to characters making decisions that make it a compelling action scene to watch, because the decisions they're making are like making it worse and keeping you as an audience member invested. So I thought that was kind of a bummer. I think the action scenes aren't as up to par with some of the other action scenes in other Pixar movies. But again, they're not bad. They're not bad at all. They're still fun to watch. They still keep you a little bit on the edge of your seat. I just feel like the cleverness of using characters' decision making within action scenes to be lacking in this movie. So yeah, is the Pixar magic back? Again, for me, it never left, because the last movie I saw was in 2017. But you know, even when that's the case, I would still say yeah. I mean, if you were burned by Elemental and you were burned by Lightyear, I do think this is a step back in the right direction for you. I mean, at least I would guess. I mean, again, this does feel like a mid-2000s, late 2000s Pixar movie, which is that they're very good. And, you know, it's nowhere near as good as like the golden age of Pixar, which to me, I mean, this could vary depending on what your tastes are, but for me, the golden age of Pixar was like the late 2000s, you know, with Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, and Toy Story 3. I don't think it's as good as those, but it's still pretty damn good. And again, I recommend this movie. Go check it out, and I think you're going to have a really good time with it. And let me know what you think. Have you seen this movie? Did you like it? Do you think that the magic is not back? Do you think the magic is back? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I will see you on the next one.